I know we probably only have time for maybe one more question each. I have a fun one. Austin, should I go first? Or you wanna?
Please, I want to hear it.
Okay, we did something like this. Let me share my screen. We did something like this with Raul Paul. The audience loved it. Feel free to, do this. If you don't want to, we can cut it out. You famously tried to buy or signaled that maybe you'd want to buy CoinDesk last year, and that, the mainstream media is in different cases is unfair to Cardano. You mentioned Cointelegraph. I don't know if
Right.
you can see the screen. I have a list here of different media outlets: Bankless, Fox Business, CoinDesk, The Block. I'm sure you've seen a list like this before, a tier list. I was wondering if you could give us, as far as who treats Cardano fairly, who does good work, the tier list.
Ah, this is going to be fun. Okay. Um, CoinDesk, let's go ahead and put them in a B to a C. And the reason being is that,
B or C?
yeah, let's put it in B, because I'm 50-50 on that. So there's been some things that they've done which are quite nice, like they've accurately and fairly reported the hard forks and things on Ouroboros and other things like that. And then there's been other things that they've done I've just scratched my head at. And we thought about buying them. And when we looked at the financials and other things, we decided to pass on that because there would be a mismatch of what we perceive to be the value and their expectations. And that's fine. New management seems to have improved a little bit. So I'm optimistic that over time, the relationship with CoinDesk will improve itself, especially since certain people have left. Cointelegraph is a C, and not because they hate us, but more because of their journalistic model that they have. The nature of how they write articles and source things, the franchise model, it's the monster of the week. And so if we happen to be hot and sexy, we get radically positive articles. But if we're not in that list, they'll just shit on us for that. Crypto Banter is a D, and that's Rand's show. And I don't understand why Rand does what he does. He loves Luna and FTX and these guys, and hates us. And he used to be a friendly guy, and I used to go on a show and we used to talk. And now Cardano's worthless and evil, and we're all gonna fall out of the top 10, and there's no real value there, and there's no dApps and other things. It's just crazy. The block I'd put in a B. I've never had a big issue with them. Decrypt I'd put in a B as well.
And by the way, please don't feel like we're fishing to get pushed in the S tier or the A tier.
No, 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 no.
Like, be honest, we're not Crypto Crows, not even on this list. I
Real
know.
Vision, Real Vision is an A, and the reason being is that I can separate Raul personally and some of the crap he does from the accessibility of Real Vision. Every time I've gone on Real Vision, and we've talked about Cardano, these been some of their highest rated episodes and most positively received episodes. And Real Vision broadcasted it without any censorship or things like that. So I just think this is a case where the founder doesn't really like Cardano for whatever reason, but the rank and file are willing to give us a fair shake, and we really do enjoy that. Fox Business also I'd put in an A because I have a lot of great relationships there, and every time we've gone, they've been nothing but fair to us. Like I've been on Maria's show, and I know Eleanor Tennant and other people there, and they've never really written negative, trashy tabloid crap about Cardano. If they mention us at all, because they seldom mention crypto, but when they do, and we happen to be in the conversation, it's always been positive, and that's always nice. I think that's pretty cool. I wish we get more coverage and more in-depth coverage, but remember, they're not trade media. Cointelegraph is 100% cryptocurrency, whereas Fox is, broad stuff. CNBC Squawk Box, there's been a few negative things here and there, but I put them B, and that's the same. What Bitcoin did, I'm not sure about that one.
Up,
Uh,
up near the top, in the middle, near the bottom.
yeah, I don't know that publication. I'm
What
sorry.
Bitcoin did? It's Peter McCormick's podcast.
Oh, okay, okay. I know Peter. He's a piece of shit. D. He shit over us all the time and said Cardano's horrible and I'm a scammer, an evil person, and all these things. Oh, and actually, no, that's Corey Klippenstein. Yeah, Peter's been a little bit more fair, but not so much so. Moving up to C. We'll do C there. And whose podcast is up only?
So far, what we have left is we have Bankless, which is, Bankless. Up
Oh yeah,
only.
they're in D. Bankless bastards.
Okay. Anything more to say on Bankless? A lot of people like them.
Well, I mean, just for, the greatest example would be when they asked me to go on their show, and I said, okay, well, you went to a Solana event, and there's Rare Evo. You can come, and if you actually want to understand Cardano, because you're claiming you don't know anything about it, go there. There's probably going to be 100, 200 Cardano projects represented, and you get to see the entire community and just go and talk to everybody. And I said, I'll give you guys a 5 hour interview if you want it, and we could talk to. I'm blue in the face about anything, nothing off limits. And they said, no, 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 we want you to come on for 45 minutes and we can just basically ask you, why is Cardano not dead? And prove to us Cardano's not dead. They're not legitimate people. And some of the comments that they've made throughout the history have been just blatantly offensive and unfair. And it's because they're not actually interested in having an intellectually honest conversation about Cardano. They've already taken a position. It is a dead project, and we're scammers, and their job is not to get lunaed. And so they just want to inform their audience every single day that Cardano is going to die and represent us in the most negative light possible. I have a lot of respect for publications that maybe they did something wrong, but then they admit it and they say to themselves, hey, we could do better. And in the case of Bankless, they just can't get there. They just have made up their mind. And Rand has too, for example, crypto banter. And that's what earns you a D in my mind, is that you're dogmatically adhering to a single belief regardless of the evidence that you have there. Coin Bureau is a C. There's been a relationship back and forth there. And you guys have always been fair. So I'll put you guys up in the S tier, not just because we're being interviewed, but I mean, come on, you have a huge audience. You've always been friendly. You're nice guys, and you try to get things right and accurate. And that's the difference between A and S. Is it's not just did we get a fair shake, but also if you get something wrong, you go out of your way to try to correct that, bring people on, have a real conversation in a non-adversarial way, and let them talk their book. And so that's an example of a good institution. And who's
Well,
up only? Which person
yeah,
is that?
Up only was more prominent in 2021 cycle. It's Kobe and Ledger. They've been around, in crypto for a while. I can't recall what companies they work for. Kobe's like a dev. He's often, get called. You had probably guys had an exchange on Twitter. If you're not, they're
Yeah.
not really that relevant this cycle.
I yeah, I don't know him, so I can't rate him. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This
Wow.
was great. And obviously, we got a discount Altcoin Daily at the top, but audience at home, please tell us. But I appreciate, Charles, you ranking us high. Maybe just like give a summation. Now we see the whole list, summation on what you want to see or who didn't we include or
Well, there's a lot of small podcasts that I tend to go on, and then there's broader podcasts that aren't crypto specific, but they do cover our industry. Like Lex Friedman, for example, got tremendously interested in crypto in 2021, and he was a great guy. He went out and interviewed everybody, and everybody, literally. I think he even interviewed Richard Hart, for God's sakes. And so I put him in S tier because he is the model. If you run a podcast, you enter in with a beginner's mind and you say, look, guys, I don't know anything about this. Tell me about it. And I'll spend hours and hours and hours trying to understand it. And my job isn't to go and be an adversarial person, but rather create a platform for people to explain who they are and why they do what they do. But also have enough of a backbone that if they're spreading propaganda or lying, you call them on that. And throughout his whole career, he's done that. And it was probably to this day the most enjoyable interview I've ever had. Episode 192 on Lex Friedman, and we were there for 5.5 hours straight. And he's one of the smartest interviewers I've ever interacted with because he's got a PhD in artificial intelligence. He's a solid guy. Dad was a famous plasma physicist. But more importantly, the questions he asked, the probing nature of them, and the holism of it, it really allowed a person to be a person. Joe Rogan is also in that same category. It's an S tier podcast, and every time he's talked about crypto, he's brought a few people on, like he brought Andreas Antonopoulos on his podcast, and he was very fair. And he's an MMA guy. He's a comedian. He's not exactly like Mr. Inventor here. He's not a technology podcast, but what he does represent is the mainstream ethos where everyday people are curious about this new thing that they hear. And what he tried to do is fairly represent the industry as a whole. And so every time he's talked about crypto, I don't think he's ever mentioned Cardano, but crypto in general, I think it's been exactly what we look for. Whereas if you compare that, for example, to like MSNBC or CNN, or a lot of these other channels, Washington Post, what have you, those mainstream media guys, it's very clear that they're following an agenda, and the agenda is, well, we like the guy in the White House right now. So, what we're going to do is we're just going to be anti-crypto. So crypto equals Hamas, crypto equals, terrorist financing, crypto equals no use case and utility and everybody losing all their money. That that's not true. And they know that that's not true. They know that this is a real industry, but they're covering that because they're propaganda factories, and to Fox Business's credit and to CNBC's credit, at least what they're doing is treating it like an asset class, and they're mentioning it in a way as they would an asset class. That's the best I could ask for that medium, because I believe the medium is outdated and it's clearly broken. But you don't go and write article after article after article that say the only use case of crypto is child fee or Hamas financing or North Korea getting nuclear weapons or something like that. You just don't do that. And then unfortunately, the mainstream media, that's literally what the coverage has been the last 24, 36 months. And it's really hurt our ability as an industry to navigate. And, it makes these things a bit challenging for us. But, I hope that gives your audience a sense of, how I think about these things. I don't look for shilling. I don't look for, hey, this is something you should buy and this coin is shit or this. That's not the point of it. Media is all about making somebody aware and expanding that awareness about why people do what they do. And then there is an accountability component. If they don't do what they say they're going to do, and that's public, you have to call them out on that and ask them on that. Like, for example, there's a lot of interviews with Elon Musk, and he's become too egotistical and big, but they should have a real conversation about self-driving cars, because you can verbatim look at him year after year after year after year, and he says, we will have self-driving cars by this date. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, by this date, by this date, by this date. So then when he brings it up in an interview, you say, well, hang on a second here. Track record's not so good. And then he freaks out and says, oh, how dare you guys? You're a dishonest media. The Trump does a lot of the same stuff. He's like, guys, it's not that. It's just you've been promised me this thing for like 7 years now, and every prediction you've made is wrong. Hang on, why aren't you, why is it this time going to be different? And that's a fair question to ask. And then I'm a Musk fan. I like Elon Musk and so forth, but you have to hold them accountable when they clearly say things that didn't happen. Or the OpenAI lawsuit, where he's calling it closed AI and all this other stuff. Let's be honest here. It was sour grapes over the fact that Tesla couldn't absorb OpenAI. That's the big issue with him. He's angry that Papa Satya got it instead of Papa Musk, and Sam's a bit smarter than the average bear on these things. So he's pissed at that. So, okay, he sues over it and he's trying to say all this stuff. But when you look at the emails and the other thing, it's very clear that they caught wind that he was trying to take over and embrace and extinguish the company, and they didn't sign up for that. They wanted to go in a different direction. So, you ask him about it. Is that fair? Yeah. And if he freaks out about it, well, that's up to him. Good media has that capacity. Do we have good media with respect to Musk coverage? No. 100% of media against Musk right now is adversarial. The pay package is one of the greatest examples of our lifetime of that. So in 2018, he went to the board and the shareholders and asked them a very simple thing. If I make you $1 trillion, I get 5%. Yen? I think any reasonable human being would be like, okay, but what if you don't? Well, if I don't, I get nothing. Okay, so you're willing to work for free unless I get $1 trillion valuation. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, here's 5%. I mean, it's like, yeah, I can't meet a person. I've not met a single person who'd say no to that. It's one of the craziest. It's absurd to say that you're going to go make a $50 billion company, $1 trillion company. Literally, that's what happened, though. And then after it happened, even though 80% of the shareholders, 73% of the non-Musk shareholders, by the way, said yes to it, and the board said yes to it, a judge, at the behest of a shareholder who owned 9 shares that he purchased at $200 that are now worth over $2,000, decided to overturn the will of a supermajority of the shareholders and the board, and in the process of doing that, tried to give $5 billion of stock to lawyers and say that's in the best interest of the shareholders of Tesla. Then Musk goes back to the shareholders and says, this is insane. Give me what I'm due. And the shareholders approve it again. And then you have the media covering that, and 100% of the stories in the mainstream media are Musk is evil. He's manipulated retail shareholders. Just attack after attack after attack. Why? Because he bought Twitter and he's competing with the mainstream media. So the book is Kill Musk, and any accomplishment the guy has is evil. Neuralink. Hey, this guy's playing fucking Civilization 6 with his brain, and look at all this cool stuff. Oh my God, it's so amazing. Oh, well, the wire's retracted a little bit, but he's still able to use it. Yeah, but the wire's retracted. So yeah, it's very dangerous. And then SpaceX, literally, he took something the size of the Statue of Liberty. The Starship is bigger than the Statue of Liberty, and blasted it off into space, and it landed. And they're like, well, the first few of them blew up, and it's bad, somehow, but Musk won't accomplish it. SpaceX is still bad. Starlink. Yeah, astronomers are angry. There's too many lights in the sky now. It's interfering in their telescopes. It's like, my God, it's the craziest shit you see when you read this. Because again, they hate the guy. So that's our problem in mainstream media. They have a philosophical and political narrative, and if you step outside of that narrative, no matter what the truth is, you get railroaded and destroyed. So when you talk about media in its whole, I only admire and respect media that doesn't have that philosophy. I say, if you're going to talk about something, talk with a beginner's mind, try to understand and acknowledge up front what your biases are. If I talk about crypto, I'm biased because I created Cardano. I'm an Ethereum co-founder. Obviously, I'm a crypto guy, and I am a very particular type of crypto guy. Am I going to be the most objective person in the world talking about Solana? No, I'm going to bring out the Nintendo cartridge and blow it off and these types of things. Okay, that's just who I am. All right. Don't expect me to be objective in my assessments of the people that have made different trade-offs, because I've already in my head said they're making a mistake in their design. However, I can be intellectually honest enough to admit that. Second, I can at least fairly represent good things that happen across the industry. Vitalik has done phenomenal things in terms of Ethereum. Solana has demonstrated a really amazing way to growth hack. Polygon has also done the same in a certain respect. ZK Sync is doing very interesting things. Starkware is doing very interesting things. And that's what real discussions and dialogues are about. They don't force on the wedge issues and the differences or exacerbate where we have differences. You try to find some common ground in the conversation where you can connect with people and understand. That's why I really admire Lex and Joe, because throughout their entire career, that's what's made them successful. They brought on all these different guests, and some are hyper controversial, like Douglas Murray, or just recently, Lex brought on Kevin Spacey. Okay, that's pretty controversial there. And yet they're able to have a conversation. You don't think, look at when he brought on the Palestinians and the Israelis. He interviewed Bibi Netanyahu and somebody who's on an Israeli watch list for terrorism and for Palestine. He brought on both guests and talked to them. So the fact that he's able to have conversations on both sides and let them explain why they do what they do. And if they're unable or unwilling to do that, the words themselves explore things. Like, it was very troubling when you watch the Bibi Netanyahu interview. It's short, terse, and it's very confined. And you live saying he's not saying a lot. And obviously he's not willing to have a real dialogue. The same happened when he interviewed the head of the NIH, whose name will come to me in a moment, Francis Collins. And he asked him all these questions about COVID and these other things. And Francis, very narrow. And you're saying to yourself, I don't feel transparency here. Not once did he have to go and attack that person and say, you're an unethical person and a dishonest person, rah, rah. He just lets them talk. And you, the audience, are not being talked down. You're judging the person based upon the argumentation, the presentation, the self-reflection, and these types of things. And in my view, the best podcasts, they give the guest the space, and the best media, they give the project and the person the space to be able to do that. And then if you want to editorialize, you absolutely can, especially if you feel that the user should know something. Like you say, by the way, the guy talking owns 30% of this product he's pitching. Oh, by the way, the guy talking went to prison and they went to prison for this crime or whatever. Then you're contextualizing relevant information so they can help make that decision. And that's the real difference, I think, between the A and the S tier, is that editorialization that is fair and relevant, if that makes sense. Sorry, that's a long-winded answer, but I mean, this is the most controversial part of the podcast, right? We're rating people.
Be sure to click subscribe. We drop a video every single day, keeping you informed about crypto.